Hi, this is the podcast of Open Minded. My name is Roberto,
My name is Alejandro.
and today we're going to be talking about stress and anxiety.
So I found this statistic by Anxiety and Depression Association of America, which states that anxiety disorders affect 40 million American adults in the U.S. around the age 18 and older, which is a total of 18.1% of the U.S. population each year. And that shows how anxiety has been a growing concern in the past years. Have you experienced any anxiety or stress?
Yeah, well, it's a this thing that like pretty much everybody deals with. Like, let's say if you have a time constraint on like at work or in school and all that stuff, and like you have to accomplish a certain goal, a certain task at a time or at a certain speed. Like that, of course, is a stressful situation. Or if you're planning something big, like let's say a wedding or just like a family outing, like it could tend to get like stressful because let's say you're dealing with kids, trying to like get everybody into a car, or let's say if stuff doesn't come out as planned, like let's say if one of your family members, I'm like, hey dude, something came up, or I have to go to work and I'll be free in 2 hours or so. Then you have to change your plans and all that stuff.
What also comes into play is the way you cope with anxiety or stress.
Mm-hmm.
There's many different ways. The way I confront stress is by resolving it,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, if you're experiencing a stressor or anxiety and you're not resolving it, it's gonna stay there, and it's just gonna remain. It's gonna remain in your head, and you're gonna keep on remembering and remembering, and you're gonna have that thought in your head that you weren't able to achieve this certain goal you set, or you weren't able to resolve this task you had in hand, or assignments that you didn't achieve or finish. It's gonna be there. It's gonna stay there until you resolve it. So, I mean, I've heard of some people who use that cope with stress by just being a little realistic. If there's something they can't, if for example you have to turn in two 2 to 5 10-page papers in 1 month, and you can only turn in 2 or 4, they just will accept it. Like there's a certain amount their body could there's a certain amount their body could do, and there's a certain amount of things they could complete
Mm.
according to their physical capabilities. And because, I mean, after a while you're gonna feel fatigue and you're not gonna be able to do more.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be the threshold.
Yeah, there's some people that like, let's say in that stressful situation, they're not able to think it well. There might be, I don't know, more emotional, or like you, they're more logical. So like they see like they don't see the point in being stressed out, and in order to accomplish it, you relieve yourself from that stress. But there's some other people that they'll let's say like they have to take a breather before they go back and try to accomplish it.
Well, you could also, there's a breathing there's breathing exercises where that you could use by by inhaling and slowly exhaling. And after a while, you feel relaxed because all that oxygen is going through all your body and your muscles. So you're gonna feel more relaxed,
and then you give yourself time to think it over too.
And you can let your mind flow for a little bit, and you're gonna, for a moment, you're not gonna have to think about all those stressors, and that anxiety has been lingering for a while. So
yeah, at least to me, yeah, it won't. Depending on the situation, like I would have to take a breather, or if not, I'm able to just go through it. Like I remember when we were small, like there was this situation where, like at least, like we were playing video games, and we put a burrito. We put a burrito in there. We put a burrito in the microwave, and I put the time that we were supposed to, and one of my brothers, they put way more time than they were supposed to, and at least to me, I felt like if like I controlled that situation way better. Where like I go in there, I'm like, oh man, I'm like the burrito's burning up, so I unplug it and open it up so like I could vent it out. Meanwhile, my brother runs out. He goes, gets a fire extinguisher, and he tries to extinguish it, but there was no fire. There's no fire. But when he was trying to use the fire extinguisher, he didn't know that he had to take out the pin and like do all this in order to actually use it. And yeah, it's just, I think some people tend to react to like stressful situations. Like other people, their mind will run wild and they won't think logically.
oh yeah, there's people that use different coping mechanisms with to cope with stress. Well, and like it's pretty. That's why like sounds pretty a little ironic how back then in prehistoric times it was, well, it still is beneficial, but back in prehistoric times and olden times, it was great for animals and creatures to experience anxiety because they would know the severity of a certain stressor, like what if
like let's say like you see a predator coming to you.
What if a prehistoric bird was being chased by a T-Rex? It's gonna know how to cope with that stress by flying away, and it's gonna know if the T-Rex catches if a T-Rex closes in proximity to the bird, it's gonna most likely
get eaten.
Yeah, by the T-Rex. And also it's like a zebra. When a zebra sees there's a cheetah chasing a big herd of other zebras, it's gonna know, oh well, it's in this moment I have to stop chewing grass or drinking water, and I have to run away to safety. I have to find a spot where the cheetah's not gonna, where the cheetah won't be able to reach, or far. I'm gonna have to find a different place. I'm gonna have to relocate where I wouldn't be in danger, and us, it's sort of it's a lot different now, since I mean, especially when you're in a first world country, in a very developed country, you're isolated from all those dangers created by animals, various other diseases to some extent, and viruses. So we don't experience that anxiety that lets us know that we're in danger.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's the stressors and the anxiety that is common in our lives. It's more like our budget, things that have to do with the economy, employment, Medicare.
Yeah, like I think like now because like we're more developed and it's we live more like in a fast-paced society where you only have a certain amount of time in order to accomplish this, do that, and then you still have to go back, deal with this, deal with that. And instead of like back then when we were farmers or like yeah, back then when we were trying to get civilized and all that stuff where everything was really slow. I'm like, you take the whole day to accomplish a task. Like I think in that sense you don't get the same amount of stress as you do nowadays, because like yeah, you had the whole day to accomplish it. And of course like you had family members helping you out because like a farm is more of a family thing, because like you have many tasks. Like let's say the big brother will take care of plowing the land, and the middle brother um, would take care of the animals, and then the dad would make sure to get the milk or the wheat for the bread, and of course like how society was back then, the mom will be taking care of the house, cleaning up, and then cooking and taking care of the babies. And then like nowadays, like basically we have to take care of so many things all at once. So that's why I think nowadays we tend to suffer more from anxiety and stress.
I mean, the problem is that also we weren't as smart, and we didn't have a developed society in order to. Uh, we can't state that we experience more stress right now. It's different. We weren't able to record it back in the days. It's like if you're saying, um, like what about when uh when the African Americans experience the Jim Crow laws, segregation, they probably experience tons of stress because I mean at the same time they couldn't really achieve anything. So
Mm-hmm.
and
Pretty much all
also
the go for it.
nothing was recorded because uh, they were mistreated and they were
Mm-hmm.
undervalued. It's we're not sure. It's more common now because uh, yeah, obviously uh, the U.S. is more well developed now, but we also have the technology to record. Well, now you could record the amount of cortisol in someone's body, or yeah, so many different ways you could use to record the amount of stress one is experiencing now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's more common. It's being more televised and media and online. So
Yeah, well, like now you're able to diagnose it way better. Unlike back then, like we would think, like, oh, it's just witchcraft, or there's there's animals in the water, or this or that. So we didn't really know what affected us.
well, we didn't know that when we experience stress, there's a bunch of cortisol going around your body,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah,
a
stress
hormone,
hormone.
the stress hormone secreted by your adrenal gland, which yeah, it's secreted when you're experiencing a lot of anxiety or stress. It's basically signaling your body that you need to act, you need to do
Mm-hmm.
something in order
Yeah, it's like
to
basically
solve this stress or just make it disappear. It's
was not really like the fight or flight thing, but
Well, it's
in
it's
some
it's
way I think it
it,
might
it's
be.
yeah, it is fight or flight. It's your sympathetic system. So
Hmm.
it's what causes your sympathetic system. So you have your parasympathetic system and your sympathetic system. Your parasympathetic, it's what they call rest and digest, when you're basically relaxed. Your airways are just normally closed. Your blood vessels are dilated, so there's more blood flowing. It's not like when you're in fight or flight mode. When you're experiencing a lot of stress, you're secreting more adrenaline. Yeah, faster heart rate, just in order to resolve resolve this stressor, or relieve the anxiety. It's basically what you need when you're in a stressful situation, when it's life threatening, and
Hmm.
so.
Oh, yeah, it's yeah, because like I think cortisol is secreted with adrenaline too, isn't it? That's why like when you're stressed out, your heart rate will start pumping. The your heart rate will increase, and yeah, which would make you feel like a little bit more antsy and all that stuff.
Well, it's a different hormone, so I mean, I don't think it's secreted with adrenaline. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like I don't know, like personally, the way like when I'm stressed out and all that stuff, like um, personally I prefer just going to a walk, or if not, like just stopping and like breathing, or if not, like I tend to get like really antsy and easily. I tend to get more stressed out easily when I'm not going to the gym too. Like use
Well,
it as a relief too.
it's a way to cope with stress. Psychologists, there's many psychologists and doctors that advise
Mm-hmm.
using breathing exercises and physically exercising. It's recommended. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, when you're physically exercising, your body's releasing all those endorphins, so you feel more relaxed, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, you're giving your body what it needs and what it wants, which is exercise. So
Yeah, and then like at least some people tend to go towards like drugs. Like, he's like, yeah, of course it makes them feel better, but of course it's not the healthiest thing to do.
but yeah, it's a faster way. I mean, it's more short term. The effect is more short term, where yeah, you consume the drug, and it at the same time you feel very calm right
Mm-hmm.
away. It's just like a
Instead of
fast
like
effect,
working to it
but
towards it.
it's very short term, and once the effect fades away, you begin to feel the anxiety again, the
Mm-hmm.
stress, and that's when you tell yourself, "What? Well, I need more supply. I need more
Mm-hmm.
drugs in order to continue feeling happy, and
Mm-hmm.
just getting away from this stress or anxiety." But I mean, like, well, the thing is that stress is what causes the anxiety. It's more like a symptom of
Mm-hmm.
stress.
It's like
It,
basically if you're putting, it's like if you're putting a band-aid on it.
mm-hmm.
Like instead of dealing it, like you just go and covered it up. I'm like, it's only gonna work until it falls off.
Yeah.
And like if you don't work towards accomplishing it, or finding a way to deal with it in a healthier manner or way, um, it'll still come back. And yeah, like, and then of course if you use drugs, it's gonna affect you. Like you get that relief short term, but in the long term, it's gonna affect you in other ways.
It's like well, also, like, stress. It's something what you should receive therapy on, or
Talk about it too with people you
no,
know.
just use therapy, or just find a way to relieve the anxiety, because at the end of the day, it's the stress. It creates a domino effect, so it affects everything in your body. Um, I was watching. I was reading this article where it talked about the Jews in the concentration camps, how the parents of some children that were in concentration camps, and
I
during the
think I've heard
era
of it.
of the Nazis, they experienced a lot of stress and anxiety.
Hmm.
And once their children were born, they were born with chronic diseases.
Yeah, chronic, yeah, like I don't know, chronic anxiety or something. I don't know if you call it that, but it's just that they were born with the same level or the same amount
No, but
of.
I don't mean like, because chronic anxiety would mean more like a short term anxiety. It's like chronic and an acute stressor. It's more like a short term, and chronic is more long term. So like acute, it's probably like if you get a little cut on your hand,
Hmm.
you feel the pain, you feel the stress for a short amount of time.
Hmm.
It's not like a chronic
No, I
where,
know, but
yeah.
like they're born with
But like with chronic disease, I mean like, or I mean more like cardiovascular disease, a lot of plaque buildup in your arteries, um, high blood pressure, basically many diseases connected to the cardiovascular systems.
Hmm. No, of course. No, but yeah, like they were born pretty much with like they were born without being in like the concentration camp with
Yeah.
like the same problems that their parents had, even though they never experienced that. So like yeah, like I don't know, stress problems or stress experience I think could be transferred genetically too. Even though they never experienced it. It's like same thing with like if your parents had diabetes, you're more prone to have it depending if you have that like gene.
Oh yeah,
And
it's was basically inherited to them. It would be inherited through a gene where, yeah, they're just born with anxiety. They're
anxiety
born with
problems.
anxiety and stress, and also cardiovascular problems. And most likely the effects to children like them.
Mm-hmm.
It's more common for them to feel stress and anxiety, and it's a lot more difficult for them to cope with it. So, yeah, and it was also it's also been recorded on animals. I saw a documentary where this stress psychologist, he was examining baboons, and he would take a he would extract a little bit of the blood, and he would measure the amount of hormones, so like the cortisol levels, and yeah, the like amount of like the blood glucose levels, just measuring how different how baboons with different roles in their society, how they had more cortisol, and they experienced more stress than the other
Mm-hmm.
baboons. So
No, and then of course like then if you're in the lower I don't know ranks of the baboons, I'm like of course you're gonna experience it more. And like I'm not saying that like yeah like let's say like a richer person experiences less than a poorer person. It's a different they experience it in like through different ways. Like let's say a rich person, since they have to deal with more money, like their business and all stuff, like it's more different. It's it's different, and I think same at the same
But
time.
yeah, it
Because like let's say like a lower income person would have to deal with like money, like dealing with their family members, and yeah.
well it varies. It depends. Like it's um well if you're a wealthy person, you most likely have your own business. So
Mm.
as a business owner, you have to you have to stress over maintaining a certain budget, maintaining a certain flow of income in order to
Mm-hmm.
pay your
Employees.
employees and sustain the maintenance in your business, sealing
Mm-hmm.
deals in the country or out of the country, and as a as a low income person, you're experiencing stress from maintaining healthcare,
Mm-hmm. Making sure that your
making
employees are
sure
treated
your
right.
kids go to school,
Mm-hmm.
buying their supplies, buying a car, providing gas, utilities, the rent. It's a lot of stuff, but it varies.
Mm-hmm.
It's more different, but it's like also like the children of a rich person, uh, they would experience stress because they don't see their parents very frequent
Mm-hmm.
because they're well they're busy taking care of
Mm-hmm. They're flying over here,
yeah,
over
and
there, and
as well you're gonna have to employ
like a
a
nanny or something.
housekeeper, yeah, a nanny, in order to take care of your child, but the
But
child
you
is unable to see their parents.
but you could say the same thing with like a low
Yeah, with a
income.
low income person because most likely both parents are gonna have to work. So
Mm-hmm.
so
So
that's
like,
like it's the same. It sometimes varies.
mm-hmm. It's like they deal with like stress in like a different way. Like it's not like oh yeah, it's only all one way that they experience it. No, it's different. It's different, but it's pretty much like leads. It goes into sort of like the same situation where like yeah, like a higher income family like deals with like not seeing him for a long term, but like let's say with a low income family, they don't see their parents, they only see them at night, where like another like a higher income person might not see it in like months or days because they're traveling here, they're doing their sealing deals and all that stuff. And it's just like yeah, of course with like a higher income family, like you have more access to a lot more things too. Like you have access to like let's say if you don't really know how to cope with it. Let's say like your other rich friend might be like, hey dude, I'm like, like I the way that I deal with it is through I don't know doing cocaine or something. I'm like, or if not, like if you want to get your father's attention, dude, let's trash the car or let's get in trouble. But like, man, yeah, and then it's
well also like for example in
mm-hmm.
with the children of a higher income family, it's they most likely have higher expectations. So
Yeah. Then
it
abandonment, like sort of abandonment issues because they don't really see their parents.
not abandonment issue. It's more like experiencing forming. They have difficulty forming a secure attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have the difficulty of forming a relationship in the future with 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 a companion or forming a friendship, making a network of friends or other people. So yeah, but they would probably experience more stress. But I mean, it's like I said, it varies. It's like a kid, a child from a low income family. When they walk out of their house, since they're a low income family, they're probably living in complex apartment complexes where there's a higher incidence of is a higher rate
Theft or
of crime. So like once they walk out of their house, they have to be aware that at the moment they walk out, they could get
mugged.
yeah, they could get mugged, they could get held at gunpoint, they could get shot, they could get killed. It's a lot of stress they're experiencing, and I mean, if they're going to school, they have to worry about that going to school and coming back. So at the same time, they could probably experience chronic anxiety, which would be long term. So it would be a long term effect, which could become a serious disorder.
Yeah. And then there's the way that like people might deal with it differently. Like let's say you're born into a low income family, right? And the way that you see it, you're like, okay, I don't wanna continue being here. So I am gonna do the best I can to get my family out of here, and never see this neighborhood again. When there's other people that are like, oh, this thing sucks, I'm like, and they get depressed, they'll go into drugs or they'll do stuff that would not fix their situation.
Well, at the same, well, there's different ways of coping, but I mean, it wouldn't be it obviously wouldn't be a way psychologists would advise coping with stress, but there's people that use suicide as a way of coping with stress, which it's not good because
like basically you are suffering, but once you commit to committing suicide, and you go through it, like basically you're like you ended yourself, but now guess what, your family members now have to deal with the loss.
Yeah, they have to deal with more stress and anxiety, but it's something that could be resolved when getting when receiving therapy, psychological therapy, and finding different ways to cope with stress and anxiety. But yeah, it wouldn't. It's not a reasonable way.
It's not,
because at the same time, all that stress you had, you're gonna leave it. You're basically gonna give it to your family. It's
somewhat like you're transferring all your stress to your family, because like, and then they'll feel like, oh, what did I do? Like I could have saved him or her, but I couldn't. What did I do wrong? And and you grew up with that. Like you grew up with that certain person, and you see them through years growing up, and then all of a sudden they're gone.
But yeah, at the same time, you wouldn't be able. You'd probably won't have a correct way of coping with the grief. So, but there's obviously many ways. Psychological therapy, because at the same time you don't know what's going on. You really don't know how to cope with the anxiety and stress, because it's just there lingering for a long time. Because all that stress and anxiety, you probably don't find the time or ways in order to resolve the stress,
or you don't see it as
an option, as like a successful way of resolving the stress or relieving the anxiety. I feel like I've heard from many people of
it's like
in medical school where they've committed suicide because it's just so much stress they're experiencing, and like if they get like just a B or a very low 90, they just lower than that, they end up committing suicide because it's
Mm-hmm. No, it's like I don't know where is it from, but like I think it's in, I'm not sure, but I think it's in China where there's like the student suicide rate is like it's really high. Probably China or Japan, one of those places over there. I'm not sure. Because like culturally wise, they're expected to get perfect grades, become the best that they can, and of course their parents are pushing them like pretty hard. Like yeah, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to push your child, um, but like if you push them to that and they don't accomplish it, yeah, of course
what
they'll
else.
do stuff like that.
It also depends on the age because I mean, as a child, there's certain tasks you could fulfill and complete.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's like if I'm if I'm like a two if I'm like a 2 or 3 year old and you're expecting me to solve a geometric problem, like how am I going to be able to solve it at that age?
Mm-hmm.
Certain um, cognitive abilities that you have at that certain age one doesn't that one doesn't have at the age of, for example, maybe like 15 or 14 or 13. And well, also in those cultures that the children have less freedom, so
Mm-hmm.
they would have less freedom to um, just perform in their daily life, the freedom to allowing their passion to choose their career in the future. It's yeah, it's that would be many reasons why, but yeah, I mean I think I've heard that it's pretty common in China. It's
Mm-hmm.
well, also you have to take in consideration that on top of the stress the parents put on the child, its education is also very limited over there. It's there's not as many colleges as universities as there would be in the U.S. or
Mm-hmm.
like in Britain or Sweden, Switzerland, and Mexico. Um, it's more limited and it's very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's also many students immigrating to the U.S. And like when they come to the U.S., it's they have a different work ethic. It's more less rest and more work
Mm-hmm.
than the regular than the common student in the U.S.
You might
It's
see it as.
so yeah, and I've read many I've read many articles and seen images of kids with IVs while they're studying. The classroom, it's they have one single classroom that's really big,
Mm-hmm.
but like literally the tables, the desks, they're like touching each other, and like on the corner of the desk, it's a big stack of books. So yeah, so like at the same time over there, the students are experiencing they're just basically passing the threshold of fatigue. So
Mm-hmm.
they're going above and beyond
To
over
accomplish it.
fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I mean at the same time you need some sleep because when you're using your brain too much, it's overly working.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to allow you need to allow it that time. You need to give it that time in order to relax and allow the inflammation to go down as you're going through those many hours of studying or work. It's and also there's that stress that like if you like attend a community college in China or like you're not considered.
Yeah, you're seen as lower.
You don't you don't basically fulfill those basically what's that word you basically what do you call it those expectations. You don't fulfill the expectations placed on you by your family and the rest of the society. So yeah. But yeah, there's many ways I relieve stress and fatigue through working out, maintaining a positive mindset. I say if I'm experiencing a lot of stress, I just confront it positively.
Yeah,
hoping, just having a lot of optimism, hoping the things come out the way I want it to be. Because I mean, if I'm approaching something very negatively, most likely the outcome is gonna be the opposite what I want it to be. So
yeah, and then always talking to people. Since let's say you don't have a therapist like available to you, you could always talk to people that you know are positive, and yeah.
And just
good way to deal with it.
Yeah, hopefully people have a more of an open mind. So I mean, if you need help, they would help you. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure there's hotlines for it too.
Yeah, there's hotlines because it's like you can't really expect someone. It's like if there's someone experiencing grief and they go up to a friend or a person and that friend or person tells you, oh well, it's part of life.
Or
that person's gonna die. Yeah. I mean, that's not the correct way to cope with stress. It's not a correct form of helping someone when they're experiencing grief. So yeah, so just I would advise just maintaining a positive mindset. It's what I use all the time. That's why I like when I'm walking around, you rarely see me sad or something. It's yeah. So that's the end of this episode, and
thank you for watching.
Yeah. All right.